of your love's like the warmth from the sun, and this will be our year, took a long time to come.
Coming up, Colin Blunstone, former lead singer of the Zombies. Their big hits were She's Not There, Tell Her No, and Time of the Season. The song we're listening to now is on the new 30th anniversary reissue of the Zombies album Odyssey and Oracle.
And I won't forget the way you said, darling, I love you. You gave me faith to go on. Now we're there, and we've only just begun.
Congratulations to WHYY Jubilee of Prizes winner, Mr. Milton A. Glazer of Cherry Hill, New Jersey, who won a 5-night Hawaiian vacation for two.
Why would someone join a hate group? On Radio Times this Monday, a conversation with two former hate group members. Then call in and tell us how much you want to know about another person's private life. I'm Marty Moscowane. Join me Monday from 10 to 12 on 91 FM WHYY.
You don't have to worry, all your worry days are gone. And this will be our year, took a long time to come. And I won't forget the way you helped me up when I was down. And I won't forget the way you said, darling, I love you. You gave me faith to go on. Now we're there, and we've only just begun. This will be our year, took a long time to come.
This is Fresh Air. I'm Terry Gross, continuing our Independence Day British Invasion show.
Now, here's a group which has only experienced moderate success here in Britain, but which has had several big hits in the States. Singing For You, we present The Zombies.
For you, my love, I'd do most anything.
Well, I think Americans were right about the Zombies. They were a great band, and you can hear the evidence on a recent 4-CD box set that includes all their recordings as well as outtakes and BBC broadcasts. The Zombies were one of the British invasion bands that followed in the wake of the Beatles. Their first record, She's Not There, made it to number 2 on the Billboard pop chart here. The next year, they made it to number 4 with Tell Her No. Ironically, the band had already broken up in 1969 when Time of the Season became their biggest hit. My guest, Colin Blunstone, was the lead singer of the Zombies. He has a new solo CD coming out at the end of the month. Before he tells us what it was like to be part of the 60s British invasion, let's hear the Zombies' first single.
Well, no one told me about her, the way she lied. Well, no one told me about her, how many people cried. But it's too late to say you're sorry. How would I know? Why should I care? Please don't bother trying to find her. She's not there. Well, let me tell you about the way she looked, the way she had tan, the color of her hair. Her voice was soft and cool, her eyes were clear and bright, but she's not there.
What do you think defined the Zombies' sound?
Well, I think a lot of the sound really comes from the writers. We had two unique writers in the band, and very prolific writers as well. And I think possibly, especially Rod Argent, his writers, his songs were, I think, well, truly wonderful. I think they were brilliant songs. And he also was a brilliant keyboard player. So you got these great keyboard breaks that he would keep putting into songs. Also, he was a very accomplished musician, even at an early age. He understood a lot about music, which certainly he was in a different league to me. So a lot of our chord progressions and the bass notes we put on the bottom of chords were quite unusual. And he also understood vocal harmonies because he was in the cathedral choir until he was about 17 or 18. And if we played a gig on a Sunday night, we'd have to go and pick him up at the back of the cathedral where he'd been singing in whatever the thing had been at the cathedral, and he'd have to be taking off all his church clothes and getting into his rock and roll gear, and then we'd go off to the rock and roll gig. So I think our harmonies helped to make things a bit different as well. I think there were lots of things that contributed towards it, but the songwriting and the vocal harmonies. And then maybe there's a little bit of the interplay between Rod's writing and my voice. I mean, both of them, Chris White and Rod Argent, used to write songs for my voice.
What were the qualities of your voice that you think they wrote for?
Well, especially for those days, I sang in quite a high key, considering compared with lots of other singers. Nowadays, lots of people do that. But I think that was one of the things. I think I tend to sing sad songs better than happy-go-lucky songs, so that often songs would have a sort of a haunting quality about them. She's Not There is probably a good example. I think they would look for that. Songs in minor keys would be another thing they would look for. So lots of little things all added up to the zombie sound.
Yeah, a lot of the songs you sang had more to do with vulnerability than showing how strong you were.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's me.
Let's hear another one of the Zombies' big hits, and this is "Tell Her No." Tell us something about the song or the session.
I think, as I remember, we'd been touring with Dionne Warwick, and who you would call Dionne Warwick, and through that we'd got very interested in Burt Bacharach songs, and I have a feeling that Rod Argent, who wrote this song, was going through a period of being influenced a lot by Burt Bacharach. With regard to the session, we would record probably 3 or 4, maybe 5 backing tracks in an evening at Decca Recording Studios, and then we would put vocals on, and it would probably be 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock at night before I got round to singing. And I always remember this session because I was fast asleep when they finished, and they woke me up to sing Tell Her No. And in fact, there's a mumbled line in the middle of Tell Her No because I was half asleep when I was singing it. And I said, listen guys, I better just do that again because there's this mumbled line. And they said, oh no, that's fine, don't worry about that. And I've heard stories of people who, in bands, who have been trying to copy our version of Tell Her No, and they've been desperately trying to work out what the lyric is. And I have to, after 15 or 30 years or whatever it is, I have to tell them, well, you shouldn't have bothered because it's just a mumble, so there is no lyric there, really.
Where is the mumble in the song?
I'll leave it to you to find out, because I can't remember off the top of my head.
Oh, come on.
No, I can't remember. It's something like you play the song, and then I'll have a think about it while you're playing.
Okay, why don't we play it? You listen in, and then you tell us which the line was.
Okay. How funny to hear this all the way from America.
And if she should tell you, come closer. And if she tempts you with a charm,
Okay, that's all right. First one.
tell her no, 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 no,
Chorus.
no, 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 no. Don't hurt me now, for her love belongs to me. And if she should tell you I love you, whoa, whoa. And if she tempts you with a charm,
This might be it.
tell her no, no,
Here it is.
love from your
That's it.
arms. No, 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 no.
Did you hear it?
Yeah, so it's the part I
It's
was...
sort of...
Yeah, go ahead.
It sort of sounds like "Don't love her, love from your arms" or something, but really it's...
I always heard it as "Don't hurt me now" from her arms, and I figured, well, I don't know what that means, but it's all right. I get the gist of it.
Well, what it means is it was a rather sleepy zombie who was trying to do his best, but was a little bit not with it. He was amongst those not present.
I always loved your chorus of, the "Tell Her No's" with your whoa, whoa, who's in it and all that.
Yes.
Did you sing it the same way for each take, or did it always come out different?
Well, it wasn't something that was specifically written. It was, okay, Colin, now do a little bit of something here. It probably would have been similar, but it wouldn't have been exactly the same.
My guest is Colin Blunstone, former lead singer of the Zombies. We'll talk more after a break. This is Fresh Air. Back with Colin Blunstone. He was the lead singer of the 60s British invasion band, the Zombies. What was it like to be in the United States and, billed as a British invasion band? What did that mean to you?
Well, the surprise for me was the reaction. I mean, I wasn't particularly aware of the fact that we were part of the British invasion. I'm not sure if that term was used, certainly to me, at the time. I mean, I know the expression now, but so I can't really say I reacted to that phrase when I was there. But what was interesting to me was the enthusiasm and the huge numbers of the fans in America for all music. I mean, things were a little bit more basic back here in the UK. We would be travelling in the back of an old van. There were very few freeways in this country. We call them motorways. So we would be travelling on country lanes, vast distances in a broken down old van. It wasn't terribly glamorous, really, except we were having fun. We were 18 years old. What did we care? But then when we went to America, we were playing to huge audiences and very, very enthusiastic audiences that were screaming and rushing the stage and tearing our clothes off. And it was all pretty exciting stuff, really. Very exciting.
Do your best to be honest with me about this. What's it like when you're 19, you're a young man, you're just getting started, you know, as a man in the world and sexually and all that. And here there's like, you go from
sounds
city...
very interesting.
Yeah, that's right. You go from city to city, and women are screaming and screaming over you. I mean, this must really give you a sense of being something else, you know, and
very
just,
lucky is the expression I was thinking of.
Right.
Well, I enjoyed it very much. Definitely, it was wonderful.
Well, I mean, how much did it go to your head, and how sometimes that type of stuff
I don't
really
think so.
deforms people's personalities.
Yeah, I don't think it did too much in our band, but again, it probably better if someone else judged it, because we sort of had periods of success, and we had periods of not being so successful, and we were brought down to earth with a big bump. And also in the band, no one was allowed to get too carried away. I mean, we'd grown up together, and anybody who got too carried away would be slapped into place pretty quickly. It was very exciting, and it was great fun. But we all still lived at home with our parents. We still lived in the little area that we'd grown up in, and we weren't really allowed to get too carried away.
When you started performing, particularly when you came over to the States and started performing, did you get a lot of advice or guidance on what to wear, what kind of haircuts you should have, what kind of eyeglasses the guys in the band should wear, all that image type of stuff?
No, we didn't, actually. And I think that, image-wise, I think it was a weakness in the band. I think, you know, we were together professionally for 3 years, although we were together for 4 years at school. Towards the end of the 3 years, I think we were getting the image thing a bit more sorted out, but it had just been a natural progression for us. And I think that we needed help, I think, earlier on. How could it be any different? Our first record had been a huge hit record around the world, and some of the guys had just left school, and I don't know how much other bands thought about image, but we certainly didn't. And I wish that some shrewd character had given us a bit of help there. And then you just mentioned spectacles. Two of the guys wore very heavy rim spectacles, and at a time when, if you're in a teenage band, of course you want to look fairly attractive for people, and it wasn't very fashionable at the time for young men in rock bands to wear glasses. And towards the middle or the end of our professional career, Paul Atkinson stopped wearing those heavy rim glasses and wore contact lenses, and he was a very good-looking lad, and I think it might have helped us a little bit if he'd wore contact lenses from the beginning. But just little things like that I think we could have looked into. And I think also She's Not There is a very charismatic song. It's eerie, almost could be a little bit sinister, and I think we could have worked on that.
Right.
Instead of which, we came with a very jolly little Tell Her No number for our second record, which was, it didn't seem to me to follow She's Not There very well, really.
In one article that I think was written in an American newspaper or magazine, an article that's quoted in the liner notes to the New Zombies box set, the band was described as clean-cut, quiet, well-mannered, intelligent. They behave like gentlemen. Was that considered good or a liability at the time?
Well, it's funny
to be so clean-cut in your image, yeah.
When you met people in the media, I think they quite liked it because we turned up on time, and
you didn't insult them.
We didn't insult them. We didn't spit, and But when you actually put that into an article, I think it can put people off.
Mm-hmm.
People want rascals and rogues and naughty boys, you know. And then do you know what he did? Do you know what this guy did? People love that, you know. But then they're not having to face it firsthand. So in a way, I think that it went against us a bit. Mind you, I'm saying all this with hindsight. I didn't realise it at the time. We were just making it up as we went along.
Well, I think it's time to play another record. I'm going to ask you to choose one this time around. Choose something you'd like to play that we haven't heard yet. Maybe, why don't you choose here one of your favorite recordings on the box set? Maybe something that hasn't been issued before.
Something that hasn't been issued before?
Yeah.
How about Walking in the Sun?
Good. And tell us why you're choosing this.
Well, I'm choosing it because I haven't heard it in a long time. I remember recording it, you know, in the early sessions, sort of 1964, and to the best of my knowledge, I don't think it was ever released. And I think it's a pretty good track, and I can't explain why it wasn't released. I don't remember the thinking behind that, and I wish it had been released at the time.
Okay, and this is Walking in the Sun, the Zombies, featured on the new Zombies box set, Zombie Heaven. Here we go.
We walking in the sun, share our joy with everyone, and they only knew the joy I share with you. We walking in the sun, we walking in the sun. Be walking in the sun. You will laugh and walk with me, and we will share our ecstasy. Round the world, they'll laugh and say, love us all to be that way. So we try to.
When you first came to the United States on the first Zombies tour, you performed with the Murray the K show in Brooklyn, and Murray the K
That's
was
right.
like the
Yep.
great New York disc jockey. And he'd have these great rock and roll shows in which a lot of rhythm and blues acts and rock and roll acts performed. Who did you share the bill with? Do you remember?
Yes, Chuck Jackson was top of the bill, the Shirelles, Benny King, Shangri-Las, Patti LaBelle and the Bluebells, as they were then, and we had to follow them, and they were wonderful. And they used to bring the house down, and we had to go on next. The Nashville Teens, there was another English band on there. There were probably some other acts as well, but I don't remember anymore. But it was a great experience. You know, we did 5 or 6 shows a day, but of course we sang 1 or 2 songs. It wasn't as if you went on and did an hour, but you had to be there from early in the morning till late at night and just go on and do your one song.
So everybody probably knew everybody else's song by the time.
I think they did, yeah.
the tour
And one of
was-
the things that intrigued me was we couldn't go out of the theatre because there were huge crowds out there. And Paul Atkinson, our lead guitarist, he left the theatre once, and this crowd they didn't mean to do him any harm, but just because they were so big, they backed him up against a plate glass window. And the police came in and got him out. He when he came out, he had no shirt on. He was just about to go through a plate glass window. And they said to him, well, listen, we've got you out the once, but if you come out again, you're on your own. So that was enough for us. We just had to stay backstage all day. But then when everyone had gone home, we came out. Normally we go and have a quick beer in the bar next door, and then we get on the subway. Because we didn't really have any money, even in those days. I think we were number 1. Nationally, but we still didn't have any money. So we'd get on the subway and people would say, you're going on the subway late at night from Brooklyn to wherever it was, which I think was a fairly tough area, and people were just amazed. But if the fans had just waited a little bit longer, they could have come on the subway with us and probably helped us to find our hotel. I'm sure we were getting lost all the time.
But that's very funny, though, to go from, in just a couple of hours from complete stardom at the theater to complete invisibility on the subway.
I know, but I mean, it's a crazy business, isn't it?
Yeah,
and
right.
I think you have to learn to switch on and more importantly, to switch off. Because if you try and live the rock and roll life, I think you'll be in trouble, you know.
My guest is Colin Blunstone, former lead singer of the Zombies. We'll talk more after a break. This is Fresh Air. '60s British invasion band, the Zombies. Let's play something from the new Zombies box set. And this is a previously unissued recording that you made, I think, at the BBC. And it's a cover of Burt Bacharach's The Look of Love. And you had mentioned before that the band had, toured with Dionne Warwick?
That's right, the very first tour we ever did. And we were fantastic Burt Bacharach fans. I still am a big Burt Bacharach fan. He just writes the most wonderful songs.
Were you thinking of Dionne Warwick when you sang this yourself?
No, because the version I'd heard was by Dusty Springfield, and I think she had a hit in America with that version, but she didn't have a hit in the UK. It's funny how that happens. You know, people can have hits with a wonderful version of a song in one country, and it doesn't mean anything in another country. Very strange.
And now you're hearing the sweet and swinging sound of the Zombies one more time in The Look of Love, written by Burt Bacharach.
The look of love is in your eyes. A look your heart can disguise. The look of love is saying so much more than just words could ever say. And what my heart has heard, well, it takes my breath away. I can hardly wait to hold you, feel my arms around you. How long I have waited just to love you. Now that I have found you, you've got the look of love is on your face. A look that time can't erase. Mine tonight. Could this be just the start of so many nights like this? Let's make a lover's vow and then seal it with a kiss. I can hardly wait to hold you, feel my arms around you. How long I have waited just to love you. Now that I have found you, don't ever go, don't ever go. I love you so.
That's the Zombies, is recorded in 1967, one of the previously unissued sessions that's included on the new Zombies box set. My guest, Colin Blunstone, was the lead singer of the Zombies. The very last hit that the Zombies had, Time of the Season, was from an album called Odyssey and Oracle. It's an album that didn't sell well at all in the United States. And the hit single, Time of the Season, I think was released long after the album had already kind of bombed. What is the story behind why this record came out in the way that it did?
Well, it really intrigues me, because I sometimes think that records have a life of their own, because everything was against this record. We recorded it for CBS Records in London. They'd only just started up. They were quite a small company in London, and they gave us a very limited budget. I think it was £1,000, which even in those days was a very small budget for doing an album. And there wasn't a lot of enthusiasm. We'd had quite a few flop singles. We'd just come back from a disastrous tour of the Far East, and we went into the studio, recorded this album, and there really wasn't a great response in the UK. And I don't think in America they didn't want to release it at all. But Al Cooper from Blood, Sweat and Tears was in London, and he just bought a lot of albums, took them back to America, and he wrote the sleeve notes on this album in America, and he just felt that this album stood out from everything that he brought back from the UK. So he alone is responsible for what happened with Time of the Season, because I think CBS had given up on this album. But he said, listen, this is a wonderful album, you must release it. Even then, there were 2 singles released from this album that did nothing. and the third single was Time of the Season. So everything was against it. It had no right to be a hit. When you think of how major record companies get behind some records or some acts and they put lots of money into promotion and marketing, and probably the band have just come off a huge hit as well, and so you know that something's going to happen with this record. Time of the Season had no right to be a hit, but I'm very, very glad that it was a hit. And even in the studio, I tell this as a story against myself. I didn't really like the song and I didn't want to sing it, and it had been written more or less in the morning before we recorded it, and I wasn't too sure of the exact melody. And it's a Rod Argent song, and he's very emphatic that when he writes a melody, he wants it exactly as he wrote it, and quite so. I mean, I agree with him, it should be like that. And Rod and I had a set too in the studio. It was in Studio 3 at Abbey Road. And he wanted this sung absolutely as he wrote it, and I kept making little mistakes. And I said to him, Rod, listen, if you know how to sing it, you come in here and you sing it. And he said to me, mind you, the language was a little bit richer, I hasten to add. He said to me, Colin, you're the singer, you sing it. And it went on from there. It was quite a fiery moment. But I mean, I'm really glad that he made me stand there and sing it. I would be very upset if I hadn't done it.
Colin Blunstone recorded last January after the release of a Zombies 4-CD box set. Blunstone has a solo CD coming out at the end of the month, a 30th anniversary edition of the Zombies album Odyssey
in residence.